ASU's penultimate spring practice was this past weekend, and if there's one thing I hate in college football, it's penalties. This one had way too many.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday. Welcome back to Locked On Sun Devils. My name is Philip Mulford. We got Parker Porrill right there. Today, we're talking about the spring practice, how sloppy it was. Unforced errors, crazy penalties, maybe some bright sides with the running backs looking pretty good. Transfer portal started to heat up on basketball, and I mean, to be honest, I'm a little underwhelmed. And then baseball. Man, we have an incredible offense. Our pitching really struggling. We're going to talk about the Utah series, but we're going to start here, Parker. ASU football. It had felt like the defense has put it together this past week. Offense did the week previous. It's trending upwards and upwards and upwards. And then we just see all these reports coming out of Saturday. Penalties, missed assignments, sloppiness, the death knell of a football team. Why is it happening this late in spring practice?
Well, we talked about it. First off, late last week, we talked about there were good signs, but can you be consistent? That was the main question that we had. And it's looking like they're still ironing out some things. And it looks like a lot of the fears that ASU fans have about how many transfers, how many new guys are coming in, they're coming to reality. Because when you bring a lot of new guys in, you're bound to have these issues. You're bound to have discipline issues. You're bound to keep making simple mistakes. But this is something, as you've said, Phil, that you just hate to see. You hate to see, especially at this time of the year. And Dillingham knows it. That's the best part, though, to relieve Sun Devil fans, is Dillingham knows that this is not where his program needs to be. He was very unhappy at the last scrimmage. But if there is a little caveat or something that you can take away from the scrimmage, was it the pass rush and that defense and the depth that the run game was showing out. And that is something to build upon. But at the same time, you want to fix those major issues, especially as you get towards the end of spring practice.
Yeah. And you want to talk about the bright spots, because I don't think this is all going to necessarily get fixed in the next 4 practices. It's not a lot of time. Let's be clear. This is something we'll be working on into the fall. Hopefully take more time. People get things figured out, but I'm going to keep coming back to Owen Long, right? It's another day. It's another practice. It's another time this little linebacker goes and is just pummeling tight ends 50 pounds heavier than he is. We talked about him at length yesterday. We're not going to don't have to talk about him too much here on this Monday, but this dude, we talked about probably maybe being one of the biggest ads over the postseason, or over the offseason, how much better he's looking. And he is one guy that is showing that consistency, even if the team is maybe not quite where we want it to be.
And I'll give you a name that we haven't mentioned in a minute on the defensive side of the ball. Montana Warren, defensive back. We talked about him very early on when we were talking about practice for ASU. Warren is a returner. He's not like Owen Long, where he's having to learn the system. Warren's expected to step up. He's expected to be a leader. They've been using him a little bit in nickelback situations, but he's really just a plug and play player in my mind, just because I think he's just a pure defensive player. I would have faith if you put him safety, nickelback. If I think he can even work one-on-one at times, just because that's how shifty, that's how athletic. I'm really high on Montana Warren, and it's showing out in practice. He got a couple sacks and good reps. I think Long and Warren, those are some foundational building blocks that this ASU defense can build upon to go into the future. But speaking of building blocks to move upon, I think ASU found what their offense is going to ride on early, and that's that running game. I mean, all the names mentioned: Man Robinson, Gillis, Cardae Mack, and we haven't even mentioned Kyson Brown. A little quiet on the scrimmage, but we haven't even mentioned so many names in this running game, and it seems like all of them are just producing, Phil.
Yeah, and actually, you talk about Kyson Brown. I saw some reporting that he was showing some Scadaboo-esque elements of just seeking contact and running, just layering people down. on Saturday. So that's not the highlighted 70-yard run, but that punishing you for hitting me, punishing you for trying to tackle me and still getting plus yardage is incredibly good to see that Kyson, because we were worried like ASU's running game last year was if it hits an edge, it's great, but you can't run up the A gap. You can't run straight up the middle. You just don't have the backs to see Kyson Brown evolve there is fantastic. But you talk about how good this running game is. My question to you, because we talk about another day, another practice that a tight end that's plus 50 pounds gets annihilated by Owen Long. It's another day, another practice where we hear about Cardae Mack having the best run of the practice of like the practice season. And it just keeps happening. Are we at the point now where we're not just saying, okay, Cardae Mack's not going to redshirt, because we have heard that reporting that he's not going to redshirt, that he will play in the fall if things keep going as we are. Are we at the point where in this kind of this 2-1, this 21-20 type of set personnel, Cardae Mack is just one of those backs?
I think you could see it that way. I think, as I've said, I'm not straying away from it. It's going to be a committee approach with, especially early on. I think you're going to see a lot of guys just vie for those spots. And I don't think there's going to be one consistent guy that you're like, oh, it's this situation. Oh, it's Mack's turn, that he's good in these situations. I think all around ASU just has so many guys that can do a lot of different things. I know that's really vague, but it's just looking like this running back room is so deep that there isn't just one specific type of running back. They're all really malleable and they can really just do whatever the offense wants them to do. It's looking like the bell cow of this ASU offense is going to be that running game. But I will say, Cardae Mack, the one thing that he does have is he is showing no signs of slowing down. As you've said, with every practice, we're just, oh, Cardae Mack had this amazing run. Typically, with guys that are new to programs like Cardae Mack, you have a hot streak, but then you cool down, and then it's like, oh, okay, this veteran's going to lead the way. But Cardae Mack, in good, solid reps, is just showing, hey, he's not going away, and he might be pushing his name up that totem pole when it comes to making a depth chart, which is going to be nearing a little sooner than a lot of people think.
Yeah, no, I would not be surprised to see the two-headed hydra of ASU running game this year be Kyson Brown and Cardae Mack. The way things are going, you put Avid in for short yardage. There's certainly some room for Man Robinson somewhere, but I would not be surprised to see a two premier back setup of Kyson Brown, Cardae Mack. The way things are going, and in general, I know we talked about the transfers as kind of being some of the big winners of spring practice back on Friday, but our freshmen, a couple freshmen have just been, you talk about Taquan Dunn, you talk about Cardae Mack, you talk about Jake Fetty again, you talked about drive today where he did not have an interception in the scrimmage, not today, on Saturday, did not have an interception, had really great pocket presence, really nice scrambling, not making mistakes over and over again. All of these players may not see a ton of daylight on the field come this fall, but it is really heartening to see just how much progress a lot of these recruits that Kenny is bringing in, that he's going to have a chance to, that Kenny and the crew are going to have a couple years to develop, are already looking so good 3 weeks into their first attempt, like their first opportunity really to start to figure out exactly what ASU football is about.
Yeah, the youngins are showing out, Phil. A big name that I've seen and have continued to hear reports about, especially from Chris Cartman, is Julian Hugo. He was the highest rated defensive freshman coming into 2026 for ASU. And it's just looking like the skills are there. He's physical. He just has a great nose for the ball. He's aggressive as well, which is really interesting to see for somebody so young. Typically, that aggressiveness kicks in a little bit later, just because you're still trying to fill it out. You're still having to get your body adjusted to the college level, but not so for Hugo. It's just looking like his instincts and his MO is just being aggressive, physical, pass rushing end. And it's making great strides in practice. And I think this is what's making it really interesting. And I love to see it. Great freshmen and great young players will drive a defense. they will make the defense better. You've heard the phrase iron sharpens iron. Well, your defense has to thrive on competition. And that's what young guys like Julian Hugo will do for your pass rush. Hey, all right, you got a sack in this rep? Okay, I'm going to get 2 sacks in the next 2 reps. All right. They just continually just work together and they one up each other. I love to see these young guys, especially Hugo, just continue to shine.
And speaking of new people coming in, speaking of transfers, the basketball transfer portal is starting to heat up. We got a couple names coming in over the weekend. Talk about that. Other side of this. There we go. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters and every matchup is magnified and every game can absolutely swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So better hope you're lucky. It just makes an entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. You know, as an ASU fan, it's always fun to see ASU alums doing well in the next level. And it's pretty heartening to see James Harden's Cavaliers top 5 in betting odds to go win the entire thing come June. So that's always fun. But make sure, of course, to go head over to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel. Play your game. If you've been joining us every single day, thank you so much. First of all, make sure to go check us out, LockedOnSunDevils.supercast.com. Go join the Everyday Air Club. And for listening to us every other single Locked On show. Plus, members only Discord that is heating up right now with transfer portal talk because it is getting absolutely crazy. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit the sub button, like the video. It really helps us quite a bit as we try to grow this channel back to where we'd like it to be. And let me know what you think about how this practice is going. Penalties make me sad. Did they make you sad? I hope so. But moving on to basketball, moving on to transfer portal. 2 names joining the Sun Devils over the weekend. And Parker, I gotta say it. This is not the coup. These are not the coups I was hoping for when we talked about what was going to happen in the transfer portal this year. Vaughn was expected, and we got like a bit piece backup center from Cal Baptist. I mean, you got to have depth, but yeah.
As you said, it's starting off with a whimper. Normally you hear finishing with a whimper, but it's starting off with, okay, what's next? But I will say, I'll lead off with the good news. We talked about it before we went on air, Phil. It seems like universally, there hasn't been a big splash for anybody at this point in the transfer portal. The first couple days for a lot of major programs has been weirdly quiet. So the good news is for ASU, they still can get a big name. But as you said, the first pair of names, you know, Cal Baptist, depth guy, but there is a lot of upside and there is a lot of, I would say, hype in a way around Marcus Vaughns, the sophomore transfer from LSU. And makes sense after hiring an LSU assistant who has roots in Australia to get a forward from LSU who has roots in Australia as well. I'm really excited to see what Vaughns is able to do. 3-star recruit out of high school, was ranked as the 41st best small forward in his class. And he's 6'8". He can stretch the floor. Another international talent to ASU. I think that he's obviously out of the 2, the biggest name so far. But the question is, Phil, is if he is the biggest name that ASU is able to get in this portal class, is that enough? Is Vaughns enough to head into the season feeling excited?
It's not really. Yeah. I mean, that's not surprising. But especially, you know, losing Jop, we talked about the other day, losing Truitt, who played a big part in some of our wins this last year. The good news, though, if you want to talk about the portal, not only is Marcus Vaughns, he's not bad, right? He's 3-star coming out of high school, didn't play at the college level. He was just getting his feet under him, but does have a lot of promise. I want to see he was like the number 7, number 5, somewhere in there, prospect coming out of Australia. So pretty highly ranked out of the country. Not bad. And I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do. But the big news is we kept Ford. And he was injured a lot last year, which was the unfortunate part. But when he was healthy, especially early on in the year, he was a big part of some of our more marquee wins before, you know, it all went off the rails and we started getting blown out by Iowa State by what was it, 55? Like before that started happening. He was a big part. So keeping him, that is really nice. And the other good news is that some of these guys that we've been paying attention to, Marauskis has not confirmed to anyone just yet. Heineke has not confirmed to anyone just yet. We're hearing some news that some of the bigger names from St. Mary's are actually going and, that are going to go in there. They were visiting ASU over the weekend. So I'm not giving up. Is the way that one is like, it's a little sad that, yes, we're not getting these big names at the very beginning, but as we were talking about, it seems like the transfer portal this year is just, it's going a lot slower. I'm not quite sure why that is.
Yeah, I'm a little interested to see. I think there's a lot more arbitration, but it's completely different from what I expected. I think I talked about it in an earlier episode, how this portal's going to go quick just because now there's less window. There's only one window, so it should go quicker in theory, but apparently it's the opposite. So, a big swing and a miss there, but it could quicken up very, very hastily. And a little bit of news I'm hearing from 24/7 Sports that not confirmed yet, but Andrea Grbovic is expected to enter the transfer portal, which is a little alarming for ASU. Is expected to be another good piece, another international player for ASU. If he does enter the portal, obviously that was a big international prospect that was on ASU last year that a lot of people could see as a player that Randy Bennett could develop. He just seems like a Randy Bennett type player.
Yeah.
Obviously a Bobby Hurley guy, but with Grbovic, if Grbovic does enter the portal, obviously not as big of a loss as Jop, but I expected Grbovic to be a big part of ASU's future with the loss of Jop. If he heads somewhere else, ASU has to find somebody to replace him when it comes to that size and that playmaking ability.
Yeah, and it really does make me hope that, again, we get Marauskis, we get Heineke, we get some of these St. Mary's guys. But also, man, if Grbovic enters the portal 4 or 5 days into this 2-week window, I mean, that is just, that's wild to me, Parker. That, given, again, how this transfer portal has traditionally worked, where you see these guys like first in, first out, enter the portal, already going somewhere else. I guess it is good news for the portal kind of working as it's supposed to, which is you're on the team, you enter the portal, then teams start making these conversations instead of the way it kind of very obviously worked in the past where, oh, yeah, we definitely didn't have your dad, your brother talking to our second cousin about coming here. Wink, wink. Maybe this is signs of things are maturing a little bit. Rules are being followed a little bit more closely. And I mean, that is certainly healthier for the scene. That is certainly healthier for college basketball if we're having less of just the very unfair tampering that we saw happening. Now, I don't know if that's the case. I hope it is. But it is. I mean, you are still seeing these guys that go into the transfer portal with the do not contact tag immediately. And I'm like, okay. How do you know where you're gonna go? I don't know. Anyway, it's a wild time.
A quick question for you, Phil.
Yeah.
I know we're stretching, but we mentioned Ford staying, and we came to the consensus that ASU needs bigger names in the portal. They need bigger names, but when it comes to the base of the team that is still here, Ford staying, VJ Wallace, who was out the entire season after getting injured at the exhibition against Texas A&M, staying, and there's a couple other players that have not made a decision yet. When it comes to the base right now, obviously Grbovic could still enter the portal. Other names could enter the portal as well. Who has to step up that is staying at ASU to put this place in the best spot it can next year?
I mean, the easy answer, I think, is Ford. Straight up, he showed flashes of brilliance last year. That, again, injuries, he fouled out. He had foul trouble a couple games, but I think he does have those highs in his senior year to go and look really and do be kind of want to be one of these premier guards for Randy Bennett. Now, is he going to be able to do that? I don't know, but clearly he likes what Randy Bennett is saying. He clearly likes the story that's being told. So I think it's pretty, the easy answer, of course, is Bryce Ford. I would say Gerbevich, but Gerbevich is potentially gone. And then you're like, well, other way to ask me this question, Parker, is you're saying which of the 3 guys still on our team have to step up? It's like, well, I can flip a coin at that point and I can give you a good answer.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a lot of teams struggle to start from ground zero. And I think when you have these 3 guys that show a lot of promise, and one of them that we haven't seen really play, VJ Wallace was a guy that a lot of people expected to be a dark horse player, and it ended up being Pig Johnson, who also entered the portal, but that's a different story. But because he ran out of eligibility. But VJ Wallace was a guy who was coming in with a lot of JUCO experience. I think he's a guy who could step up. I think he's a guy who has experience, who now since missing a year is a little hungry. But as you said, Ford's a guy who's been in the system heading into his senior year, is from Scottsdale, Arizona. I think he's a guy who needs to make a big time step up role. And I think we're only going to see in the coming weeks who is actually going to stay and continue to be the base. I hope Gerbevich stays. Trevor Best, I've heard some rumblings. And yeah, as we just continue to go down, as you said, you're running out of names that haven't made a decision yet on ASU's roster.
And yeah, and it's the guys that haven't made, you talk about these people that are still here. Ford is the only, what do you want to say, marquee guy? Again, assuming Gerbevich is gone, that's still there. That, Trevor Best had 3.6 points a game. He played in 11, 12, 13 games last year. Just not as a junior, right? Not or as a sophomore. Like, we're not one of these guys we look at and say, wow, this is a highly heralded guy coming in that was down with injury and it's going to come back. He's a guy that comes off the bench and plays minutes and fills spots, and we need those guys. But it'd be hard to say, I need him to step up. He needs to be the leader of this team next year. He needs to put on quality minutes, because that's just, there's not the expectation. You cannot I'm not expecting a Sapphire to be a diamond. They are their own things, and they are where they have to be. But it'd be awesome, right? Trevor Best had the most incredible year, and it was playing 30 minutes a game and scoring 25 points a game. It just blows up. But I don't really expect that out of him, which, fair, better or worse, but that's just what his performance, that's what he has shown us on the court up to this point.
Yeah. And to end this conversation, I feel like we should say, even though the lack of commits has been startling, I've seen plenty of big time recruits have visits to ASU. Mm-hmm. It seems like ASU is getting in the mix. They're getting their names out there. I've seen a couple of Gonzaga guys, a pair of Gonzaga guys who've entered the portal. There's always rumblings of a big time Mountain West prospect is heading to ASU to visit. I believe it was that guard from Boise State who had a lot of traction. Yeah.
Andrew Mountain, I think it was. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that would, you talk about a leader. He's a veteran guy. He has experience. He's averaged double digits. I think that's a guy that can easily come in and lead the way. So the answer is the ball is slowly rolling, but the good news as well on top of that is that other programs are also slowly getting the ball rolling. So it's not like ASU is behind.
No,
they just have to do a lot more legwork because of all the people that are leaving.
Yeah, it's so weird. We are now 5 days into the transfer portal and nothing is happening, which again continues to blow my mind. What also blows my mind is just how bad ASU's pitching has been over the last couple days, even as our offense continues to roll.
This episode is brought to you by TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet up face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real in-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real-life person, walking out knowing your taxes are getting handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment.
All right, Parker. Very simple question for you because I know you're out there at Phoenix Muni quite often talking about covering ASU baseball. ASU baseball's pitching staff in the two games as we're recording this weekend against Utah, they let up 23 runs, and the series is not over. In two games, it's 23 runs. Luckily, big comeback on Saturday, able to go and win 14-13. What has happened to ASU's pitching staff?
Well, I was at the game on Saturday, and I'll rant about that in 1 second after I answer your question. It's a lack of finishing. You have good guys that can get you through the first five. Sometimes you need a little help at the start, but for the most part, ASU has great starters and they have good middle relief. It's looking for that finisher, looking for that closer. Typically, you lean on Derek Schaefer, you lean on Sean Fitzpatrick to win you those games. Colby Guy has come through it a couple of times, but in that Saturday game, they went with all three of those guys. The guys I just listed, Sean Fitzpatrick, Derek Schaefer, Colby Guy, those guys that early in the season, I was like, okay, they're going to be the closer, and they couldn't finish. Sean Fitzpatrick had a good outing. I'm not getting on him on 4 batters faced, 2 strikeouts, an inning and a third of work. But Derek Schaefer, only 2/3 of work. He gave up 6 runs and 4 hits. He just struggled, and that's supposed to be one of the premier closing arms for ASU. Colby Guy, they brought him in for a third of an inning, or it was supposed to close out the game in the top of the ninth. They just needed 2 outs, could only get 1, and let up the 2 runs that eventually gave Utah the lead, which was, by the way, a lead that ASU should not have given. This game should not have went to the bottom of the ninth. Utah took the lead by scoring 8 runs in the top of the ninth. And that's what a lack of finishing does, Phil. In these conference play, no lead is safe. You start thinking at the bottom of the 8th, oh, maybe ASU mercy rules this game. Oh, okay, it's going to go to the top of the ninth. Well, they just need 3 outs, and they turn to a new arm, and they just can't finish. The inning just goes on, and that's how Utah was able to score 8 runs. And thankfully, the ASU offense can bail them out, and Landon Hairston can help bail them out. And it needed a walk-off to beat Utah, but it really shouldn't have. It really shouldn't have. So this bullpen, it's alarming, but they just need to, I don't know if there's any training for a clutch gene, but that's the cure right there, Phil.
Yeah, and this is one of those situations as well where I feel like we're just getting the same story from Willie from Willie Bloomquist after every post-game media appearance where he's just like, I need these guys to be hungry. I need them to play tighter. I need them to play a little bit more hard-nosed than they've been playing. It's kind of funny because I feel like that's what Kenny was talking about with the football team earlier on in spring, and they seem to have risen to that challenge, certainly. Playing a little sloppier, unfortunately, this past week, but on Saturday, but risen to the challenge where we've been talking about how much more physical they've been. And it's not like in basketball or like in baseball, you're going to go and get more physical. That's called, that's not good, right? That's getting you ejected from a game, but you can play a little bit more hard-nosed. You can run through the bag. You can book it for that extra base. You can put your body on the line for a catch. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's the incredible season Landon Harrison's been having. Just the fact that he got every midseason award right a couple weeks ago. I don't know if it's just whatever's happening, but we're not seeing that, and we're seeing ASU multiple times now, multiple games, let teams back in. And it's not just the pitch. Yes, certainly it is the pitching, but as an offense, it's also your job to keep piling it on. Your goal should always be to mercy rule a team in college. You should not be, you cannot sit back on your laurels. The pitching staff, of course, cannot assume the game is won. So I don't know what it is. Willie has certainly talked to him. Willie is certainly in their ear about it, but at this stage, it's turning into a worrying trend, Parker.
Yeah, and before I touch upon that, I do want to say, as we're recording this on Sunday, a good sign. Only 2 arms were used in the 5-2 win over Utah, Klecker and Alba. So it's looking like Sunday's guys were better than Saturday. Saturday was a weird game. Sometimes that happens, but a good sign. Only 2 arms were used. A dominant start, 7 innings from Klecker, then Alba, who has really become. I was mentioning out finding a guy with a clutch gene, a guy who can close the game, and Alba's really become that as the season's gone along. But to paint a picture for you, Phil, and this is just why I'm so worried about this ASU team. We talked about as much as we talk about the bullpen. This offense is great. It's a great offense, but in baseball, you can't rely on your offense to be great all of the time. It is freaking hard to hit a baseball, Phil.
Yeah.
It is
Hardest
it is
thing in sports.
hardest thing to just hit a baseball. And when ASU played those SEC teams 4 games in a row in Oklahoma and then in Fort Worth, ASU learned that when you play those high quality teams, their bullpens are no joke. You're going to get their S tier guys every single night. So when ASU aims for the postseason, when they get there and play those high quality teams, they're not going to have any days off. Their offense struggled. Now, granted, it was early in the season, but they struggled to get traction against those SEC guys. So your defense is going to have to carry more of the load when your offense eventually quiets down because they're going up against some of the best arms in the country. Not that ASU's offense will be held completely silent, but mercy ruling week in and week out isn't going to become a trend when it comes into the postseason. It's not.
No. So in the last 30 seconds here, Parker, it feels like to me, and tell me I'm wrong here, but it feels like as we get closer to the postseason, this performance and losing to UNLV earlier on in the week kind of does away with our shot at hosting a regional. Is that too reactive?
I think it's a little too reactive. You did win the series against Utah. If you lost one more game at Utah, I would agree with you. I think this upcoming series against BYU is going to say a lot about hosting. It's a worrying sign, but I still think ASU can find a way.
All right. Well, we still got it. As long as we keep playing, we still got a chance. But for now, that is it for us here today. Tomorrow, more football talk because spring practice continues to roll on. We're going to talk about that. Hopefully, there's going to be good news in the transfer portal. Hopefully, we get Marauskis, we get the number 2 forward. That'd be really fun. Or number center. But anyway, not number 2 guy in his position. That'd be awesome. For now, though, we're going to send you over the first ever 24/7 national Locked On College sports channel so you can see everything that's happening. And if you are on audio, make sure your second listen is Locked On College Basketball. And of course, check out the Everyday Club, lockedonsundevils.supercast.com. Money goes directly in our pockets and you get ad-free listening. What's not to like? I truly don't know, but for now, we'll see you tomorrow.